Okay, in addition to that, because one was tempted to say very easily that, of course, when you're setting that minimum wage, you expected to put those criteria, as you did rightfully mention. But what do you think the minimum wage should be for the Nigerian worker today?
Well, if you ask me, the president of Nigeria Labour Congress, who's also leading the negotiating team on behalf of the NSC at this committee, had already said so that the time we put up our proposal was 56,000 naira. That's what we asked for as minimum wage. But you know, with massive devaluation of the currency, with high inflation, this was the proposal we put up about 2 years ago. If you ask me today, effectively, the minimum wage should be higher than that, you know, that proposal we put on the table. But of course, you also know proposal is different from what you are going to negotiate. So effectively, I mean, I can't really preempt what the discussion will look like. But it is clear today that if you run all the numbers, you know, you look at the inflation, devaluation of the currency. You also look at the capacity of the employers to pay, you know, and of course the cost of living as a whole. It is clear that our new proposal, which I don't know where it's going to go when the negotiation begins, will definitely not be that 56,000 naira that we put up before 2 years ago. But again,
right now,
you know, it's not what you propose.
Right now, the concern.
On the table.
My apologies. Right now, the concern is that, of course, you just rightly said that inflation is the monster that just gulps away any increase in wages. But what role is being played by Labour, for instance, now that we're looking at an increase in the minimum wage? What role is being played by Labour to ensure that the inflation rates do not affect this, or the inflation rates are not enough to bring down and bring us out of that marginal inches away from recession? Yeah,
well, it's a catch-22 situation, you know, but what can we do? You know, the federal government has the responsibility to manage the economy. It's the government that must ensure macroeconomic stability. Gimba, you know, I told you that the first minimum wage was 125 naira. At that time, it was very interesting. We were a very strong economy, such that even naira relatively was stronger than US dollars. In fact, the last estimate we did, it was that minimum wage in 1981 was about $200. You know, I mean, if you look at it in nominal rate today, which means as at 1981, I mean, that's effectively, you are talking of, you know, decades ago, Nigerian workers in nominal terms earn more than what they earn today. I mean, just do the normal nominal calculation, that comes to almost about 40,000 naira. That's what a worker was earning in 1981. And, you know, that $120 add more real value because, you know, all the factors, we had single digits in inflation. Naira was very strong. So I perfectly agree with you, but we're in a market economy. When you go to the market, you know, market women and men ask for money for you to pay for food. You want to pay your landlord, you need money to pay for your rent. So as far as we are concerned, our challenge is not to manage inflation. Our challenge is for us to cope with the rate of inflation and pay, you know, our prices in the market. So what I'm saying here is that the responsibility of the government to make sure that we have macroeconomic stability, and above all, to make sure that you pay the working people very well. And let me also quickly add this. Payment of workers' salary, ensuring good pay, is also good for the economy. It's smart economics. I had the Vice President Osibanjo lamenting about only 6% of Nigeria pay taxes. But when you disaggregate that, that's national average. Nigerian workers actually pay taxes 100% because we are pay as you earn. So if you have low wages, you also have low taxes from the workers. If you have high pay, you have good taxes. So it's also good for government revenue, as the case may be. Then above all, workers' pay, you know, enhances purchasing power in the country. Workers' pay will not be taken to Dubai, will not be taken to London, you know, will not be London, because the money is not even enough is to buy food and basic services in the country.
As a matter of fact, that particular point you mentioned, my apologies, that particular point you mentioned, foodstuffs are the first casualty line whenever we have this increase in wages. What do you think is going to happen this time around? Because the last time we had it, all of a sudden, the food prices skyrocketed overnight.
No, well, I'm not sure, Gimba. You know, even now the food prices have skyrocketed. You have not enhanced the pay of the workers. You should ask yourself, how are the workers paying for food now? How are they paying for rent now? You know, inflation had already gone up, even without increases in pay of the workers. You know, I think the bottom line is that every working man and woman must pay, you know, for survival, and they can only do so through their wages, unless you want them to rely on corruption, corrupt practices, which is not the way to sustain dignity of labor. So the bottom line is that every employer, you know, and government in particular, must learn to pay workers as and when due. I just have President Buhari, you know, sermonizing to the governors to pay the workers. Some governors to pay the workers their salary before Christmas. I'm afraid
that that's where we're going to have to leave it. Isara, we want to thank you so much indeed for talking to us, a NEC member of the the Nigerian Labour Congress. Thank you so much indeed. And when we return, we'll focus on the Ogoni land and the Amnesty Criminal Enterprise Report. Stay with us.